a close confidant of Mr. Netanyahu and fellow Likud party member Zaki Hanegbi has held a number of high-level positions, currently Israel's Minister of Community Affairs. So thank you for joining us. We are talking about the possible end of an era here. What chance Benjamin Netanyahu can prevent this new government and the end of an era?
We have a week before the final vote. It's going to be probably next Wednesday. Until then, we are trying to convince members of the Israeli parliament not to support this left government headed by a right-wing candidate that really, as far as we feel, deceived his constituency and is now moving the votes from the right wing to the left wing. So we will see in a week what will be the result of our efforts to convince more and more members of the Israeli parliament to support Netanyahu to stay as a prime minister.
How likely is it, do you believe? You're inside Israeli politics. You're talking to people on a regular basis, of course. You're part of the government. How likely is it that you will see defectors at this point?
Well, there is a contradiction between what we see in the polls, in the popular vote, and what's happening now in the parliament. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that three right-wing parties that used to be a traditional part of the right wing in the parliament are now cooperating with the 40 members of the parliament that are from the center left or left, and altogether they intend to bring down Prime Minister Netanyahu and to elect a new Prime Minister, Mr. Bennett. So the voters, the constituency, as far as we see from the polls, are very much against it. The majority of the people that voted for those right-wing parties are feeling betrayed in a way. But the leaders of those parties are still committed to go forward with this new government, and we will have to see whether the pressure coming from the constituency of those parties will have an impact. If not, we will see probably a change in the political arena of Israel. It's not going to be very long. We see that this government has 61 supporters in the parliament out of 120. It's a very problematic majority.
Yes. That's the problem with Israeli politics, of course, isn't it? Because the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu have only been able to scrape together those 61 in the past, and that's where the sort of that's where the instability has come for so long now. You don't want a fifth election, sir, do you?
No, definitely. No citizen in Israel, a sane citizen in Israel, would like to see a new elections, because they are not going to change the situation. We believe that the current situation in the parliament allows Prime Minister Netanyahu to build a very harmonious right-wing government, but unfortunately, due to personal ambitions and personal interests that are part of the human nature, we see that some members of the right-wing school of thought move to the other side, and we will see what will happen next week.
There will be people who have a wry smile on their face when they hear you say it is the result of people with personal ambition that this has come about. And of course, you're talking about Naftali Bennett there, when so many people would suggest that that is the MO, as it were, of Benjamin Netanyahu himself. Of course, this all brings up some big questions for the Likud party, of which you are a member. It has remained unflinchingly loyal to Benjamin Netanyahu over the years. There have been reports the health minister plans to challenge Netanyahu for the leadership of Likud. Should the party go in a different direction, if it ends up being in opposition, do you believe it needs someone new to take the reins at this point?
It's an unlikely scenario. We believe in the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu, And about the smile that you just mentioned, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu had a lot of ambitions, but the majority of the right-wing voters voted for him. He got 30 mandates, while the opponents that I just related to got 6 mandates each. So the majority of the people in the right-wing camp in Israel still support Prime Minister Netanyahu. He will serve as the head of the opposition. He had done it twice in the past. He lost the elections in 1999, and then he lost again in 2006. And he came back powerful and more strong than ever before. So I believe that even though there might be a left government within a week, we will see Prime Minister leading the opposition. Israel, as you know, is a vibrant democracy. We have a lot of room to work in the parliament and to try to bring the left government down. And then we will go for a new election and let the people make a decision again.
He faces criminal action at present, though, doesn't he? I mean, how confident are you that should he lose the leadership, that this may be the end for Benjamin Netanyahu in Israeli politics?
Again, I see what's happening within my party. The overwhelming majority of the party just voted for Netanyahu like a year ago, when there was a contender trying to compete with him, and he got 26% of the votes, and Prime Minister Netanyahu got more than 73%. Again, it's legitimate in our system to challenge the Prime Minister. He's going to be the head of the party anyway. And we will see whether somebody will believe that he has this power. Netanyahu will go on leading the party for many, many years to come. You know, many people would like to replace him, me included. We are wishing for this to happen whenever it happens. But we know that at the moment, the leader, who is now one of the most senior leaders in the world, with the perspective and experience and knowledge and really amazing achievements. You know what's happening now in Israel, one of the few countries in the world that really won against the pandemic and many other achievements. So we believe in Prime Minister Netanyahu, and even though he will have to step down for a while, we'll support him whenever it's possible to be back at leading the country.
Let me close by just asking you about Naftali Bennett, who could be Prime Minister by late next week. He's been described as one of the most far-right politicians in your country, and he openly opposes the establishment of a Palestinian state. I wonder what direction, briefly, you believe he will take Israel in if indeed he becomes leader, and how will you position yourself, and indeed how will your party be positioned against him in opposition?
Well, the main ability of the new government to function is not to make decisions that will rock the boat, because you have people from the far left there and people from the right, even from the far right, like Mr. Bennett, and from the Russian, and from the Arabs, and from the secular, and you know, various components try to go together with one common denominator, which is to bring Netanyahu down out of hatred, jealousy, animosity, whatever. So I don't think that they will be able to establish any clear-cut agenda. So we won't see any major decisions. It's a problematic thing to do in Israel, because we have decisions to make almost every day vis-a-vis the Iranians, the Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, other enemies of Israel. But they will try to be very, very cautious in making decisions, and I don't think they will be able to address in any harmonious way the Palestinian issue. So probably we won't see any specific agenda that will be addressing the major challenges of Israel in the next year or year and a half.
With that, we'll leave it there. We thank you very much indeed for joining us. This, of